Looks like we have a quorum. It's 7:01. This meeting of the Southfield Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered as a community meeting. There is an opportunity for public participation during the meeting, and comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. The board will listen to comments but may not respond during the meeting. Roll call. Charles Hicks, Board President.
Gsrp Joyce, Vice President.
Good evening, Leslie Love Smith Thomas, Board Secretary.
Yolanda Smith Charles, Trustee.
Trustee Robinson.
I'm sorry. Betty Robinson, Board Treasurer. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is that all of the
Trustee Rice? No, Trustee Rice.
Good evening. I think I'm joined as an attendee because I couldn't get in as a panelist.
No,
I think she's mixed up.
You wouldn't be able to speak. Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And it looks like Pool is here also.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Green.
Jennifer Green, Superintendent. I'm joined by the executive team, and this evening taking minutes will be Miss Laura Norris.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Bless you. Board matters. Well, a lot has happened since we've last met. We just experienced a very interesting week, and I've never seen this much excitement regarding an election. I humbly thank all that voted, and I'm truly excited and proud that yet another glass ceiling has been broken. Congratulations to all of the elected officials at the federal, state, and local levels who were elected office, including Trustee Yolanda Smith Charles, who was elected as an Oakland County Commissioner. Congratulations. I would like to apply some specific focus on the election impacting this board. 2 seats were up for election. Trustees Michael Poole and Betty Robinson have served this board for many years. Their service to the district will end this year on the 31st of December. I would like to congratulate and welcome Ashanti Bland and Amani Johnson, who were elected to serve our board beginning January 1st. We have had preliminary meetings to begin getting them acclimated, and I look forward to their service. During a conference this weekend held by the Michigan Association for School Boards, they encouraged boards to begin acclimating and building relationships with our new members. So trustees, please welcome our new members. We are fortunate to have many individuals who've expressed interest in our board, and I encourage them to continue partnering with the district where possible. Any other board matters from trustees?
I have a couple things.
Yes, ma'am.
To that excellent point about the conference this weekend with regards to the annual leadership conference with Michigan Association of School Boards, I wanted to just highlight per our operating procedure, sort of, just to highlight a couple things. There was one in particular, one class on, I think it was Friday, perhaps, feels like years ago, where we were talking about superintendent retention. I mean, there were a lot of great workshops, but something that I wanted to, we've heard, some of us on the board before have heard with regards to the longevity of a superintendent is averaged at about 5 years. They had it at like 2.75 years up to 7.3 years. And when you really delved in and got to listen a little bit, it really talked about how that turnover at the superintendent level can adversely affect student achievement. I know we know that about at the board level as well. And I don't know that we sometimes get a chance to reflect on our experiences as board members when we have had to go through superintendent searches, and why it's a lot nicer for you if you don't have to. And so it adds to organizational dysfunction, demoralization amongst faculty and staff. Sometimes, this is something I thought was really interesting. Sometimes staff will wait out the superintendent. You know how sometimes you'll have staff that's been here 2 decades. They will wait out superintendents. I thought that was fascinating. But the number one factor, the reason that superintendents tend to leave a district, is problems with the school board. You know, you can give as much money as you want, as many perks and benefits. I think that it's not just superintendent school board relationships, it's how that school board works together that will oftentimes cause superintendents not to have longevity. So I think that it's good. You mentioned about some of our legacy folks on the board making their way into post-board service. So that was something that I took a lot away from. And then the other thing was about ethics and fraud. We get lots of reports, and I think if we had like a framework of how to look at them sometimes, not necessarily the strategic plan level, but in terms of just fraud, you know, so they were talking about implementing hotlines, or they talked about small school districts where one of the board members would be the hotline. I was like, but perform surprise audits, utilizing data to analyze, and then also training employees. And so those are 5 ways that they felt you could do your best job to prevent fraud. And so again, at the 30,000 foot level, sometimes it's hard to know, you know, what's going on in the grass. So I just liked those 5 points about establishing strong internal controls. I have 2 other points that I'm going to leave for good in the order, but those 2 I definitely wanted to make sure I elevated early on.
So thank you, Trustee Charles. And I'm not sure if you all noticed, but Trustee Charles is adorned in the Sigma Gamma Rho sorority sweater. On the month of November, both Sigma Gamma Rho and Omega Psi Phi were founded. Reason why I mention this is that many educators and administrators within the district who provide service to our district are members of these fine organizations, and we just want to acknowledge you all and congratulate you.
Thank you.
Are there any other board matters? Hearing none, report of the superintendent, Dr. Green.
Good evening, Board President, trustees. Again, I echo your sentiments. Happy Founders Day to all that are celebrating. There are several of our cabinet members that are also members of Sigma Gamma Rho, so we would be remiss if we did not mention them as well. Moving along with the agenda this evening, we have a lot of exciting things to share with you. First and foremost, that of a legislative update. On Monday of this week, I did have an opportunity to meet with the legislators of Oakland County. Of course, our topic of conversation was that of lame duck session. We all remember the last few years, how many bills went through lame duck session. Most recently, we had the largest number of bills go through lame duck session. So we wanted to be proactive in that regard and try to prevent that from occurring. Some of the things that they mentioned were, of course, focusing on consistency relative to the bills they were passing or putting forward, direction relative to the coronavirus disease of 2019. And one that I found to be quite interesting, Runstead said that he was going to propose legislation relative to dyslexia and his strong beliefs regarding students not being able to read by grade 3, as the current legislation outlines, because of a number of them having dyslexia. So that is something that will be forthcoming. He's also looking at something called structured literacy. I did ask that if this is something that they're going to introduce, that we have some time to implement, because far too often we are given information at the last minute and it's not beneficial to our teaching staff or to our students when they get very limited notice on implementing new policies and or procedures or programs for that matter. So that is what they are proposing this term. I also forwarded you this evening the draft document of what the American Association of Superintendents forwarded to the president-elect Biden and his team relative to education, where we are asking them to take certain actions by reversing some of the things that happened under the last administration. We're also asking that they fully fund IDEA. We are asking that they eliminate the funding going to vouchers and a number of other things. That 9-page document is in your email. If anyone in our listening audience wishes to see that document, they can go to the AASA website, again, AASA website, and that document is there. But we are working diligently to be proactive and try to truly get a head start on this new administration. Ms. Norris, if you would pull up my PowerPoint for this evening's presentation. My next item is the Oakland County Health Department. And I truly wish I had a different report to share with you, as today's numbers were approximately 6,500 new COVID cases statewide. Unfortunately, that is the greatest number of cases since this pandemic began in the state of Michigan, dating back to March 10th. Here you see the dashboard from Oakland County, where we've had over 25,000 cases and 177 deaths in our county. Now, what's interesting, and I've listed this before, but I think it's important to note that the total recovered reflects those individuals that are still with us 60 days post positive results. So if you test positive today and 60 days from now, you are assumed to be well, you are assumed to have totally recovered from COVID. If you were to develop another symptom or to unfortunately make your transition beyond that 60-day mark, you would not be counted in the death category. You would still be considered one that has recovered. So that was one of the things I lifted with the legislators as well. I think that we have room for improvement relative to our data reporting so that our community fully understands where we are with this pandemic. Ms. Norris? This is also the weekly COVID report. I to you hopefully every Thursday. We meet with the Oakland County Health Department every Thursday, and we generally get an updated report. This is the one from last Thursday. And as you can see, the trend in almost every category is increasing. The only thing that was remaining consistent was that of the 14-day average tests per day. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because if the 14-day average was already high, that simply means that it remains high or remains consistent. Next slide, please. And you'll see here, the majority of the areas are extremely high. And what's most important for us is that very last item, that being the county level risk determination. You may recall a few weeks ago, we talked about the county having the letter system A through E, E being the lowest you could possibly go. And of course, we are at an E, and those numbers continue. So something below an E, we would currently be there as a county.
Hey, Dr. Green, looks like Trustee Charles has a question.
Sure, I can't, when the screen is up, I can't see that. So thank you, Board President.
Dr. Green, yes, to take a peek at this earlier today, so thank you for sharing it. What I found telling, and I don't know how many MSNBC watchers are on the call, but they talk a lot about percent positivity, and they also talk a lot about that percent of positivity being 1% or less, and you are in a fairly good space. And so, unless my eyes are deceiving me, I believe ours is at 8.57%.
You are absolutely, we're on that slide right now. So you're absolutely right. The second line, percent positivity for 7 days is 8.57, and the percent positivity for 28 days is 6.1. Now you have to be mindful, 28 days prior goes back to October 6th, which of course the numbers were significantly lower than they are now. So we are expecting the one on this Thursday to be closer to the 10% mark.
The only other thing I wanted to highlight that I thought was important as taxpayers was simply the two blue arrows in the middle of the chart about the healthcare capacity, and then the county's ability for testing, tracing, and containment. I mean, if there's any kind of pride point, I'd like to say at least that there's people who live in some areas where they don't have capacity. They've got 2 beds. So just want to shed some light on that. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
You're absolutely correct with both of those points. And unfortunately, many communities don't have hospitals in which to service their community. Therefore, their patients are being shipped to other locations for those services. So it's most unfortunate. Now, as it pertains to testing, tracing, and containment infrastructure, ours remains strong, but we do have room for improvement, particularly when it comes to a cross-county conversation. So we have a number of individuals that reside in other counties and or are tested in other counties, and we don't always get that information in a timely manner. We're most fortunate that due to our relational trust with many of our stakeholders, they are forthcoming with the information. Short of that, we would not know we had individuals that could be subject to contact tracing and or know where to start in that contact tracing process. So as you matriculate to the county level, that is one thing that I humbly ask you keep on your radar, is having that dialogue across county lines. The next slide shows the particular coronavirus results relative to age groups, and you can see that they are all trending in a direction other than those 90 and above. And I'm sure how they classify unknown. I recall going in and they specifically took all of our information. So I'm not sure who falls into that unknown category, but you will see that many of the age groups are very high, particularly the age group of 19 to 29. They are the highest. So we have to be very mindful of the things that we do. And we know that there is a facet of our community that is suffering from the coronavirus disease fatigue. There's another facet of our community suffering from the coronavirus disease trauma. And how do we provide supports for those individuals so that we don't give up the fight relative to remaining safe to ensure that our children can eventually return back to school? Back one, please. Wasn't ready to share those results yet. Okay, any questions regarding the Oakland County results before I share some positive news regarding our Parent Pulse results? No. Okay, then moving along, we all want to get a sense of where our families are regarding the services that we're providing. So next slide, Ms. Norris. We recently sent out a survey and we asked 4 questions. 1, overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the educational experience Southfield Public Schools has provided this fall? We know that some people are not happy with us being remote. So we expected to see that reflected in the response. For the most part, 27.6% were neutral. So they weren't really happy with it, but they were happy that they were safe. 9.8% were dissatisfied, but for the most part, and this is telling, 18.9% were very satisfied and 40.4% were satisfied. Trust and believe that that group that fell into the 9.8 category, we are reaching out to each and every one of those individuals to find out why they are dissatisfied and what we can do to improve their satisfaction rate. Next slide. Overall, this school year, how would you rate technology support to students and families? We know that a lot of people struggled with technology initially. For the frustrated category, there was a little over 11%. Adequate was a little over 33%. Good was 35.5%. And very good was 17.2%. So thank you to all of the techies in the world, but I'd definitely like to give a shout out to Mr. Patton and Mr. Lake who have made a concerted effort to connect with all of our families regarding technology. Next slide. Overall this school year, how responsive or unresponsive has your school administrator been? We always hear about allegations of people not being responsive, so this was very important to us. And our community, as you can see, neither responsive or unresponsive, that family may not have had an issue, so they didn't need a response, but for the most part, 41.3% responsive and 40.1% very responsive. So thank you to all of our administrators within Southfield Public Schools for responding to our families. Next slide. Overall this school year, how clear has the communication been from your school administrator? And again, you'll see that for the most part, families were extremely pleased, or they understood the communication. It was clear what they were expected to do. 44.1% stated it was clear, 39.9% or rounded to 40% felt that it was very clear, and 12.3% stated that it was neither clear or unclear. So overall, we were pleased with the results that we've seen thus far from our parents, and we know that we always have room for improvement. You know, Trustee Smith-Charles, you mentioned last time, we always look for areas in which we can improve. We are reaching out to these families to see why are they dissatisfied in certain areas, and as I stated, how can we improve our services to help them move along and ensure that their children are receiving the proper education. I believe that ends that slide, Ms. Norris. You can take that back down. Any questions regarding results? I did forward that to you in advance to be cognizant of time. I apologize to the audience for having to be here last month until 11 o'clock, so I'm trying to do better with getting things out in a timely manner. So, excellent. There were some other outstanding items that were asked during the last meeting. All of those have been forwarded. One of the things that did not, you do not have in your inbox is that of the audit. The legislator changed the due date for the audit due to the coronavirus disease and all of the additional pieces that are in place. I did speak with Plant Moran this afternoon, and they informed me, which I knew, but I needed to confirm that we have until December 1st for them to complete the audit. So once that is complete, you will definitely receive an updated report from our partners at Plant Moran. The other thing that was lifted was that of grants, additional grants, and I referred back to our board policy 6110, grant funds, specifically the second paragraph that indicates the superintendent shall review new federal education legislation and prepare proposals for programs he or she deems would be of aid to the students of the district. The superintendent shall approve each proposal prior to submission, and the board shall approve the grants resulting from such proposals. We have applied for everything that came across our desk. I see Josie shaking her head yes. I'm sure my grants have absolutely sent her up a wall along with Dr. Ferris, but that's the only way we knew how to bring additional monies into the school district. And I'm pleased to say that collectively, we have approximately $5 million in grant dollars that will be coming into the district, separate and apart from our traditional grants, federal grants of Title I, Title II, Title III, and Section 31A. These are additional grants in which we've applied to offset COVID expenses. Our most recent grant application will afford us an opportunity to replenish all of the Chromebooks that we have distributed, as well as provide each of our teachers with a new laptop station for their desk. So if we ever have to pivot in the future, the desktop will no longer be an issue. Everyone will have a laptop in which they can take home and utilize throughout that time. So we know that there's a delay on all technology coming into the states, and we don't know when we will get that approved and get those laptops in, but we did want to share with you and with our community that we are moving forward in that regard as well. Any questions regarding that information?
Needs grant. Ms. Ferris?
The grants are monitored at several different levels. So we have federal monitoring, we have state monitoring, and then we have local monitoring within the district. Ms. Ferris monitors some, the financial department monitors grants. We have teams of individuals consistently monitoring, but the fiduciaries are always sending out monitors to ensure that we are properly spending the dollars in accordance with the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding that? Excellent. Okay, moving along, we have our start report this evening, and I know that that was forwarded to our trustees in advance as well. Trustee Robinson or Trustee Smith-Charles or Trustee Joyce, are you reporting on that this evening? If not, we do have Director Hill on the line.
Okay, because I didn't see the director's report, but I might have missed it. I saw the financials.
Okay. Director Hill, if Trustee Rob, did you see it, Trustee Robinson?
No, she can go ahead and report.
Okay. Director Hill?
Good evening, everyone, Superintendent, Board, and our community. This will be the Busey Center for Early Childhood Education Director's Report for October 2020. Our enrollment, Head Start, 81, Early Head Start, 16, and Great Start, 32. Head Start is allowing programs to be flexible with enrollment. We're taking guidance from licensing. Programs will not be penalized for not reaching full funded enrollment. Our 2020-21 Gsrp budget was signed and approved by the governor. Programs will be held harmless for this school year and will be awarded based on allocation for the 2019-2020 school year. We will be funded for 143 slots for Gsrp. For our child adult care food program, the month of October, there was no food served. However, our families participated with Forgotten Harvest on the first and third Friday. The program is continuing to provide diapers, pull-ups, wipes, and formula for our early Head Start families. For compliances, Head Start is encouraging programs to have parents provide dental, hearing, and vision screenings. However, programs will not be non-compliant on the 45-day vision and hearing screening or the 90-day dental screening. We still have a vacancy for secretary and clerk. The reason why we have that vacancy is because until we pivot back into the building, we were just going to continue to leave that vacancy. Information to share. The program completed a survey with Busey families regarding the return to learn during the month of October. The following information summarizes some of the questions we asked our families. Assuming appropriate safety measures are in place, what is your preference for how your child will continue receiving services in this current school year? 40% of our families want to remain virtual and 60% face-to-face. We asked our families how they would like us to continue to communicate with them. 38% is requesting we communicate via telephone, and 62% would like to be communicated through emails. How can the program support you with returning to in-person learning or continue the current form of distant learning for the current school year? Approximately 25% of our families said they would not change anything. 30% said that they feel we're doing an amazing job. We had 5% that wish we had longer hours, which means more screen time. 30% wants us to continue to provide virtual learning. We have 10% just wanted to make sure that if the children do return, that we provide masks. 15% wants us to ensure the rooms are properly sanitized. And 25% ask that we continue to keep lines of communication open. If a form of distant learning virtually continues this current school year, what improvements and modifications would you suggest? We had approximately about 2% request homework packets and creating perhaps a weekly schedule to send home and to allow flexibility. There was approximately 27% that said none at this time. You had approximately 5% that want more one-on-one instruction. We want 3% said stop virtual completely and open up the school. We had 1% request a computer. We had approximately 4% request later start time and 4% longer hours. We also asked our families, how concerned are you about your child's social and emotional well-being? We had approximately 3% say they're a little concerned, 2% say that their children miss their teachers, but they're doing well. We had approximately 22% say they're very concerned, and we had approximately 45% say they're not concerned. Busey hosted a harvest festival for our children and families October the 13th. Start times were staggered for each classroom to allow for the safety of all. The children visited various stations, enjoying a train ride, picking a pumpkin, taking pictures, and at the last station, they received a donut and apple juice. Fun was had by all. The program also hosted a virtual baby shower on Tuesday, October 27th. There were approximately 23 participants that joined via Zoom. A representative from the WIC office shared information on breastfeeding. They also donated over 50 bags with various items for each participant. The following day, participants came to Busey and picked up their gifts for their babies. Start communication. The title is Submission for OMB Review, the National Survey of Early Child and Education COVID-19 Follow-up. And the Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, is proposing a two-wave data collection as part of the National Survey of Early Care and Education, which will be conducted in October 2020 through June 2021. And it is just a follow-up on the current supply of early care and education services, that is home-based providers, center-based providers, and center-based provider workforce. For our self-assessment, the program is on track with meeting the items addressed during the 2020 annual self-assessment. That does end my report. Are there any questions?
Ms. Hill, I have one question.
Sure.
What's your total enrollment? Gsrp versus regular students?
For Gsrp, which is straight Gsrp, is 32.
Okay.
For Head Start is 81, and for Early Head Start is 16.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also missed the ADA, I'm sorry, not attendance, although that'd be good. Not attendance. My question was about our other benchmark that we try to track.
You're speaking about our in-kind?
No, not our in-kind. Thank you for jogging my memory. It's the our 90% and 10% special students with special needs. I just wonder, how are we looking in that ratio?
At this particular time, we have approximately 9 students that are receiving services. There is going to be, of course, programs can request a waiver for that as well, because we are not serving our total funded enrollment. We are just, of course, trying to service those children and families that have the greatest need. So we did, of course, work with our Child Find Department as well as the Early Childhood Special Education. They did recommend, and some of the children that were in those programs, Little Steps, are now receiving services through our Head Start program. Are there any additional questions? Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Hill. Greatly appreciated. And it looks like you had a great time going on the maze with the pumpkins and the train ride. And I'm glad to see the social distancing to have occurred as well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That concludes the report of the superintendent. Something that Director Hill spoke on jogged my memory relative to immunizations. And I mentioned this at the Area Council PTA meeting the other night, and I would like to mention it, if I may, Board President, this evening. The importance of students receiving their immunizations on time. We recognize that with the coronavirus, many fell behind. And for those that had the series of immunizations, some had to start over. So we want to work with our families. The legislation has not provided us a waiver to, to not monitor immunizations during this time. Although we're operating remote, they are still depending on us to submit a report. I am in constant negotiations, well, not negotiations, but conversations with them, because I am opposed to suspending students due to failure to have immunizations while we're in a virtual space. It is difficult enough to get students to log in and stay engaged while we're in this virtual space. To suspend them virtually is not my first choice or preference. So I'm trying to work with the health department as well as with our local legislators to get some type of waiver for our families in that regard. We are planning to have an additional power hour to bring on our nurses to share resources with our families relative to immunizations. And as you, of course, we have the partnership with Ascension. So if someone has not been able to get to their local pediatrician, they can reach out to us and we will connect them with one of our partners for those immunizations.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Action items. The chair will entertain a motion to open and approve the consent agenda.
Board Chair, Board President, I just wanted to mention that the Head Start report was in the agenda on board books. I just overlooked it. And with that, I move that we open and approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been properly moved and seconded to open and approve the consent agenda. Any discussion or correction? Hearing none, Board Secretary, please call for the vote.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to open and approve Report 5925, Talent Management Personnel Action Report.
So moved.
Support.
It's been properly moved and seconded to open and approve Report 5925. Ms. Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jolene Davis from Chief Talent Management Office and Division. Welcome to my background, my beachwear. I'm calling to, I'm talking to say that I need to modify the personnel action report that I brought forward this evening. As it relates to our number 2, the new hire, they have rescinded their acceptance of our position. And so that individual will be no longer moving forward with the district at this time.
Is that employee 1 or 2?
Employee number 2. Number 1 was a transfer, employee number 2 was a hire.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Trustees, any further questions? Hearing none. Oh, yes, sir.
Board President, this is Trustee Rice.
Oh, sorry.
Do we need to amend our motion excluding number 2? Because if we approve, we're approving all. I think that's my understanding.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. So to that point, well, let's see if there's any further questions first, and then we'll go back to the person that made the motion and the second to ask for an amendment. Are there any further questions on the talent management report? Hearing none, will the person who motioned and seconded respectfully amend the report based on the changes submitted by Ms. Davis?
I'd like to open and approve report 5925, Talent Management Personnel Action Report with the necessary corrections.
Support.
It's been properly moved and seconded to modify the report submitted with corrections. Board Secretary, please call for the vote.
Trustee Joyce,
Yes.
Trustee Poole,
Yes.
Trustee Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
Trustee Hicks,
Yes.
Trustee Charles,
Yes.
myself, yes, unanimous.
Motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to open and approve report 5926, continuation of remote learning through January 23rd, 2021.
So move.
Support.
It's been properly moved and seconded to open and approve report 5926. Any discussion or questions?
President, if I may add a little context to this, I know that 2 weeks ago, which was our October meeting, this was approved. And as we discussed earlier today, you were asking why we had to approve it yet again, given that we went through January of 2021. The law requires that trustees have an opportunity to make any adjustments necessary based on the data we receive from our students and or our families. Therefore, we must bring it to you for approval within every 30 days. Given that this is the only meeting for the month of November, that is why it is back in front of you yet again this evening. And we are required as a district for compliance to submit a report every month. I know Summer has been very instrumental in submitting those, so we are grateful to her for doing that. And she's, I'm sure, looking forward to submitting this next report.
So
Trustees, any questions or comments?
I just have a logistics question, I guess. Is this an attachment that I can find in the agenda currently, or are we operating off of the same one from the last meeting?
We are off of the same report. If you recall, the curriculum team did a presentation along with or led by Ms. English. It was that proposal that you accepted in totality. We are asking that you continue to support that proposal.
Dr. Green, and that's with no changes, just continued support.
Yes, ma'am. No changes.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And this, you say, is a monthly approval?
That is correct. It will come before you again in December.
Can you jot a reminder of what it entails and for next month meeting, so we'll know what it is, because sometimes you can't remember 2 months back.
Understood.
Check what we're approving again.
We will attach the PowerPoint presentation that was shared with the full proposal if nothing has changed. And if something has changed, we will highlight the changes in another color.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no further comment, Board Secretary, please call for the vote.
1 second, I just want to be sure that we are that we've stated it for the record what the recommendation is. I know that we've referenced last month, but I think it's probably important to have it on record each month when we vote and approve it, that we are stating the recommendation as well. So I wasn't sure if that was stated in the motion.
Board President, I believe mentioned the report number, and it was stated continuation of remote learning through January 23rd of 2021. If you didn't, then I'm hearing you did. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, that's good. That was just for clarity purposes. I just think it's important for the community to know the direction that we're moving in and continue to move in, so that we're not referencing necessarily report numbers, but we're making it very plain for them what it is we're doing.
You could add the word 100% remote. I think that would even further clarify that we are asking for continuation of 100% remote learning.
So for the record, it's been properly moved and seconded that we open and approve report 5926, continuation of remote learning through January 23rd, 2021, being 100% remote. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Board President, we may want to change that. I'm sure we all know that, but it's 2021, not 2020.
Yeah, I verbally made the correction. I noted that as well, but duly noted. Please, Board Secretary, please call for the vote.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion carried. Informational items. Finance report. Dr. Green.
Yes, good evening, Board President. We have a number of information items to share with you this evening. One of the things we discussed as an executive team was how do we improve our practice of getting information to trustees in a timely manner, and then also allow you adequate time to digest the information and ask any necessary questions. We have added another layer to what it is we plan to do. That being, we will present information items to you without report numbers because we are not asking for action on them at that time, nor are we presenting them as a formal information item. So you will see them 3 times now. You'll see them once in the beginning phases of what we're planning, 2, see it as an official information item once we've worked out all of the components behind the scene. And then the 3rd time you see it will be for action. So most of these information items this evening are simply a cursory review of what we're working on prior to them being brought to you for full information. However, that does not apply to the financial reports. Mr. Mark Ingram, our CFO, will present to you our financial reports with all of the tabs that have been requested by trustees. So Mr. Ingram.
Reports.
We can hear you, sir.
Norris, do you have that one to pull up?
God, this is ridiculous.
Wait a minute. It's back. So this is the, Laura, can we first go to the general fund tab on the far left, Gen Fund 1 tab? Thank you. So this shows for our general fund, our budget to actual as of October 31st. We have received approximately 25 million of our $80 million budget, or about 31%. Could you go down lower, please? In terms of expenditures, of our $90 million budget, we've only spent 17 million of our expenditures through October 31st, or about 18.6%. As of October 31st, for this year, we have an annual surplus of about $8 million. Can we go to the food service slide, please, Laura?
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ingram, would it be okay if you referred to the line?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we go back, Laura? Can we go up to row 13? Oh, excuse me, row up row 12. So our year to date, we have received in revenue about 25 million. That's row 12, column E. This is equivalent to about 31% of our budgeted revenue. And can we go down, Laura? To row 36, column E, we received about 17 million of a $90 million budget, or about 18.64%. We go to row 38, that is equivalent to about an $8 million surplus as of October 31st. Any questions with the general fund?
I have the same question probably on another chart later that you might be referring to, but are we trending in the normal space for this time of year with regards to expenditures and revenue?
Revenue, yes. Expenditures are down, understandably. You can see that especially in transportation. Our ops and maintenance is also running a little lower than normal.
I know we pay into the energy fund. Have we recovered any savings there that might be reflected in this chart?
Let me check with my staff to get you an answer for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the general fund?
Mr. Inger, if I could just add to that response, Trustee Smith Charles, we are looking to save wherever we can, understanding that we don't know what the lame duck session will hold for us and or what adjustments the legislators will be making to our funding in the future. So we are looking to utilize the force majeure clauses that were in many of our third-party contracts, and our partners have been amazing during this time to help us in recognizing savings as well. So we are doing slightly better than we initially thought, and every little bit helps along the way.
Any other questions on the general fund?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. These are funds that we received from the state, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we received how much so far? What percentage have we received so far?
Can we go up to line 12, Laura, please?
Okay.
So our budget
31%.
in column D is about 81 million. We received about 25 million. You see that in column E, which is about 31%. And we are about a third of the way through the fiscal year, so we're on pace. Any other questions with the general fund?
So also, I do want to ask again about row 38. It
Yes.
looks like that we, as a board, had anticipated being in the negative, and as of the year-to-date actual, we're not. That may seem like a very... Yes, go ahead, Dr.
So if you recall the last meeting before we approved it, we actually made necessary modifications and we did not submit a budget that was in the negative.
Right. I remember it being around, I thought it was around 3 million in the black. And I'm just...
So our current operating, the two key things are the state did come through with our anticipated revenue. They did not severely reduce our foundational allowance like we were anticipating. Also, if you look at row 26, operations and maintenance, our PPE, we've very, through the leadership and guidance of Ms. Petita and Dr. Ferris and Ms. Smith in operations, we haven't needed to spend nearly as much as we anticipated. We've only we spent about 1.5 million in operations, which is about actually a little less than our normal spend rate. Between getting our full funding and not having to spend, we've been able to use our grant funding to pay for our PPE. We've been able to have a surplus so far. Also, our payroll is a little lower than we were expecting this year. So right now, it's very, very, very early. Revenues are pretty solid. Expenditures, I would expect, will increase as the year goes on.
It's also important to note the generosity of our partners relative to the PPE donations that we have received over the course of the last 9 months. We are extremely grateful for them. Actually, today we received another donation from Michigan First Credit Union, so we'd like to thank Michael Polis and his team for that donation. And we've also received a generous donation from a local company donor who are relocating elsewhere within the city. So we are continuously receiving support from our partners that assist in this endeavor.
I have a question to that effect, Dr. Green. When you mentioned that he mentioned 1.529,343 is for maintenance and PPE. Well, we received $1.5 million 3 months ago in corporate donations. So this really.
So the donations that you're referencing, Robinson, and forgive me for interjecting, that was not all financial contribution. Much of that was in kind, in products and or services. A lot of it had to deal with the fresh produce that we provided for the community. It had to do with us receiving nursing support from Oakland County. It had to do with us getting social, emotional, and mental supports for our families during the pandemic. So all of that was not in cash donations. Some of it was that of technology. So it's various pockets of money. It was not a check for $1.5 million.
Okay. I'm confused because I thought that it wasn't explained to me that way, and I really didn't understand it that way.
I'll forward that back to you. Again, that was the report we shared on opening day, and we also shared it at a couple board meetings, but I'll be more than happy to get that to you again this evening.
Yeah, because I remember asking a couple of months ago, once we received those donations, how would we utilize that funding? And I never got a report on that. So looking at this report, it really it's a little bit confusing.
If you'd like to schedule some time to have a virtual meeting with the finance team, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that request as well, to break down the various pots of money, as well as the donations that the district has received to date.
Okay, I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to mention that our pupil transportation, Road 27, our invoices are being posted. Next month, you should see a healthy jump in our transportation costs as we catch up. Again, this is very early. Our expenses will run faster than our revenues going forward, but we are in much better shape in terms of our outlook than we were on June 30th.
Okay, now this is the amount that we're paying for transportation, even though we're not utilizing transportation. Is that what you're saying?
So we have a contract with.
We're contracted with the company. That doesn't just go away because we're not transporting people. It's not like Uber.
And
that's what I'm asking. Is this our monthly? Does this break down as our monthly fee toward the contract that we have with them? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And there is a breakdown that we got today. I'm sure we're not going to have it tonight for the meeting, but it's in your email where it talks about all of the savings for the last, I don't know, 6-7 months, and it's good reading.
Yeah, I have that here.
So there's one specifically relative to transportation. As Mr. Ingram was outlining, we did follow our contract, but we also were very fortunate that First Student was willing to work with us to experience some savings during that time. And you may recall that we are utilizing our buses for other services, such as delivering meals to our families and or transporting them when needed for specific appointments. So we are still under contract with them. They also volunteered, or didn't volunteer, they worked our food banks and other drive-through things that we had in the district. So that report leads into the report that you're seeing now.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Ingram?
Laura, can we go to the next tab, food service? Let's go down, please, to row 27, current year operating results. Column E, currently have a $260,000 deficit. We have not received our federal funding. However, we are being billed obviously by our vendor SFE on a monthly basis. This will catch up as the year goes on. Any questions with food service?
Yes. So now we're not feeding kids, but this is still a part of their contract, and we did not renegotiate the contract since March, being closed on the food service.
Correction. The students are being fed, Trustee Robinson, on a daily basis.
Actually, we're feeding them more. We're feeding them breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. They are delivering every Monday, and they are delivering meals for the entire week. So to your point, students are receiving more meals now than they were receiving prior to closure.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions with food service?
You did say this is a reimbursement. So we have to spend it, and then when in the year do they typically reimburse the USDA?
I can give you an answer. I can provide that answer to you at our next meeting.
Okay.
We should be getting another check. Usually, Ilana, we get a check in October, then another one in January or February from the state.
Well, this is USDA, I mean. So I was just curious, but I can wait on the answer.
Okay. Our food service director was on the line. I'm not sure if Rodell is still on the line. If you had some specific questions that you wished for him to address, I'm looking back through here. See him. Oh, yes, he is still here. So, Board President, if it's the pleasure of the board, you could move up Rodell, and if not, I know that year to date we've received 74,000 or reimbursement for 74,229 meals to be exact. There he is.
Hi, hello.
How are you?
Hold on a second. I was eating my dinner. I didn't know if you guys turned on the video, so I wanted to make sure you guys didn't get to see my gourmet tacos I was eating. But actually, a little bit of a correction. We've actually done more than 74,000 meals was just something we served in the month of October. So for the month of September, exactly, we had 33, hold on a second, let me just make sure that I have the right one. I didn't, you guys were going to bring me up, so I didn't have it prepared.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can provide that back, and we'll get the answers to the trustees.
Yeah, it is currently at 116,000 meals since we started the actual program, and you are currently on my records based on the I'm tracking the reimbursement because they have switched the program from National School Lunch to Summer Food Service Program. The Summer Food Service Program amended application for extension has just recently been approved. So that means that claims will start to be being paid probably over the next 2 months. And the way I'm tracking it right now, CACFP is another one that provides dinner and snack. You should be well into the black going into December.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Ingram.
Laura, can we move to student activity 290? Current year operating results. Row 18, column F, negative 21,722. Any questions here?
Mr. Ingram, before anyone asks any questions, I did just want to lift in the conversation. I know Rodell is very humble, and we've had the working with him for many years, but I did want to give them additional acknowledgement. They are delivering not only to our students, they're delivering to any family in the district, in the city that is in need of food. We have that built into the program. The federal government, we fought at numerous levels to get that approved for the duration of this calendar year. And then we were fortunate to receive it through the end of June. So we're able to feed any young person in the city. So they are taking care of not only Southfield Public Schools, but they are taking care of all young people in the city. We also know that when a family misses delivery, they will double back and deliver to those individuals. We had a family miss the delivery yesterday, and they took the food back to them. So I know that he's very humble, and he would not ever acknowledge that, but I did want to publicly acknowledge that, and also to let our community know that as a school district, we not only take care of our children, we take care of all children, and that's important to note.
Any other questions with the student activity tab? Can we advance to the debt service tab, Laura? So this is our debt retirement for debt for 2017. Get our property taxes in, we pay the interest. Row 21, column F, current year, $1.8 million. Our taxes have exceeded our payout of interest and principal. Any questions here? Next tab, Laura, capital projects, 410. Go down. A lot of these have been moved to our projects that will be coming up in our next two slides. 412, building and site fund. Thank you, Laura. So here you'll see what all of our various projects that we're paying with the non-voted bonds that you kindly approved this spring. All of our various projects and encumbrances. Any questions I can answer for you here?
Does it show a balance of operating the results? I see. Yeah, operating results. After we've paid for all of these services with a bond, does it give us a balance? The beginning, oh, here we go, fund balance. This is July. Do we have a balance after this has been completed?
After this.
Pardon me?
When we say after this has been completed.
Yeah, all the services, repairs. As we make a repair at different schools, and we deduct that amount from the total, do they give us still an open balance of what's left, what's remaining?
So Laura, can we go up a little bit? All right, so we have what's been approved, and then in column E we have encumbrances. So the beginning we have 13 million.
Okay.
In our encumbrances, column E, let's go down again, Laura. We've encumbered 2.8, 2.2. Then on column F, row 33, we spent about 570. So combined, we spent about, encumbered about 2.8. Our original budget is 13.5. So remaining, I apologize, it's not reflected here. It's about 10.8 million.
Okay.
Board President?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Have we started the repairs on the schools as far as parking lots this year?
So with parking lots, we wanted to make sure we got through the winter months, making sure there was no issue with air, anything COVID. We had to update. We wanted to hold off on going out for those bids, assuming everything remains stable between now and February. We'll go out for bids in February and then begin work on parking lots in the spring.
Okay, I see line 23, you have the emergency egress road. You're gonna leave those dollars there for the next month, or you're gonna deduct that because it still hasn't been approved yet, correct?
Yeah, egress road, that was approved as part of.
Mr. Ingram, if I may, the egress road was approved by our Board of Education and was also approved by the Michigan State Police Department. What was not approved was the 15 feet. Is currently in litigation with or in the hands of our attorneys. Therefore, we will leave it there until we receive a response from the Michigan State Police and or our legal counsel. But we are not going to prematurely remove those in the event that they tell us that it is mandatory for us to move forward with that road.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions with the Building and Site Fund 412? Laura, can we move the sinking fund 480? This fund is used strictly to pay off our non-voted bonds. We get the taxes, we pay off the bonds. Any questions here? Next tab, please, Laura, general fund, building budgets. These are our building budgets for our schools. Go down to row 21. We have column I of the budget, about 12.5% has been committed to date. Remaining 87.5 is still outstanding.
So explain that to me. I know that each school has a budget, but since all the schools are closed, what has that money been spent on?
Some schools could be supporting virtual learning. They could be buying, they could be purchasing their own PPE, even though it is provided by the district. It's their funding. It's for their programs.
It's funding to support student learning. You may recall seeing on WDIV within the last 30 days, they actually covered Southfield Public Schools and the additional learning packets that we were providing for our families who had additional needs. Those items come directly from the building level supports and or the specific program supports to provide for our families. It could also cover copying paper for those that need additional paper in their buildings or other basic supplies to support the learning environment.
Okay. Even though the learning environment is virtual, I can understand the, and everybody's working from home. It just seems like a lot.
We've had some schools that have hosted drive-throughs where the families come through and pick up additional literacy packets or pick up additional materials to work with their students. So there are a variety of things. If you'd like to see the itemized list from every building, that's really getting down to the granular level of the organization. However, if that is the request of the board, then we'll provide those itemized lists as well.
That's management, not governance.
Yeah, I didn't ask for that.
So I'm telling you. Please move on, Mr. Ingram.
Is it fair to understand this report, this particular tab here, that a lot of these numbers are described in the check registry?
You'll see anything that we paid. You won't see the encumbrances will be on a separate PO report.
Okay, okay.
That's correct. And this is also the result of zero-based budgeting. If trustees can think back to pre-COVID, we had a lot of conversation relative to zero-based budgeting, and our administrators did a tremendous amount of work on learning the zero-based budgeting system. And this was their first attempt at zero-based budgeting, and they've done a great job in that process.
Mr. Ingram, please continue.
Can we move to the next tab, Laura, please? Grants. So this is just the spreadsheet showing our current award amount, expenditures to date, encumbrances, and balance for each of our grants. Any questions here? Next tab, Laura, please. Capital projects. So here you will see our various current capital projects with the approved budget amount. Column G, you'll see the FY20 expenditures. Column H, you'll see the FY21 expenditures. Column I, you'll see the remaining budget remaining. Any questions here? Then our final tab for the evening, Laura, please. Credit card transactions. Just a straight listing of our credit card transactions for the last month. Any questions here?
So it doesn't show how many credit cards are issued and who they're issued to whom. Do you have a record of that?
That information is on our transparency page.
Pardon me?
That information is on our budget transparency page if you want to see everybody who has a credit card.
Okay.
That's on the website for the entire community to see. We are very transparent in that regard. These are the credit cards that have been utilized, and you'll see the names of those individuals to the far left.
Trustees, any further questions for Mr. Ingram? Hearing none, thank you, sir, for your report. Dr. Green, parent pay?
Thank you. We will continue with financial supports. I would ask that we reverse the order and discuss the purchase cards first and then the parent pay. I think my agenda has parent pay first and then purchase cards. These are two projects that we've been working on for several months now, and we're pretty excited about the prospect of bringing them on board. Again, we're not asking for your support on this tonight. This is a cursory view, and the next time you see this, it will have a report number attached, and it will be for formal information. Then it will come back for action. So Ms. Josie, if you would share the great work that you and the team have been doing relative to purchase cards first and parent pay second.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Green, my colleagues, and the community. I'm very excited to bring this information to you tonight. In the business office, we strive to increase efficiencies and convenience and accuracy. So we always trying to streamline processes, and these are two of the projects that we are researching at the moment and undergoing to gather the information to best see what fits the district. So in order to increase efficiencies and offer convenience to our staff, we are exploring the option of implementing a procurement card or a purchasing card program. Next slide, Laura. So a procurement card, often referred to as P cards, is different in principle, but work in the same way that a traditional credit card does. The district will have the ability to set a wide variety of controls, and it offers increased convenience in making common routine transactions. So if you consider the things that are routine to a school district, conferences, which include registrations, sometimes lodging and meals, memberships, and in the building levels, items that are purchased for fundraisers, these can be done by using a procurement card instead of the traditional way of having a check cut. So if you think about it, when we were face-to-face and we were attending conferences, a staff member, administrator, or a teacher may attend a conference, but they would have to have a check printed and bring that to the conference to register, or if they were staying overnight, if it was a multi-day conference, to bring it to the hotel, which often can be really inconvenient because sometimes you don't get notification of those conferences till late, and it's very difficult to process the check and have it ready to bring to the conference. This way, they could do their own registration after it's been approved by their administrator to attend, and pay for that registration on their P card. And if they were going to a hotel and stayed, they could pay for those lodging costs by P card. They're great for memberships. We no longer have to wait for a check to be cut to join the memberships. And for instance, in this year, as far as fundraising goes, it's very convenient to pay for those items with the P card instead of having to send a check and send it halfway across the country, for instance, this summer to California, in order to get those items in time to distribute to the parents who already had paid before we went out into quarantine. So how it works is the district pre-approves the categories of merchants. So this eliminates the needs for purchase orders because the vendors are already approved on an approved merchant list. Laura, can you move to the next slide, please? So each card holder would be asked to sign a purchasing card agreement in order to receive and use the card. The agreement will outline the responsibilities of the card user, and it also includes what he or she will be responsible for. Part of the agreement will list certain items that are not allowed under the card. It will also give them an idea of what they're responsible for every month, to reconcile their account online, to include the appropriate account numbers, and to have all the monthly statements with their original receipts sent to the business office for documentation. The cardholders will have a monthly spend limit, and that limit can be lowered or raised only by the P card administrator if there should be an extraordinary circumstance or an emergency. The limits will be placed. I'm sorry, I have a typo on my slide here. Limits will be placed on how often they can make purchases every month, who they can buy from, and what they can buy. Next slide, please. So here are the benefits.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go on. I know Trustee Smith-Charles asked a question earlier today via email relative to vendors. So I think that's very important, that slide you just addressed, relative to who can be a vendor, what items can be purchased, etc. So that was one of the additional controls that I mentioned to Trustee Smith-Charles this afternoon in a conversation. So I just wanted to lift that before we went further in the presentation. So please forgive my interruption.
No, not at all. So how that works is the district, when we initially implement the program, we approved certain categories of vendors. So we make sure that we don't include party stores that may sell liquor or tobacco. It's just vendors who are approved and would sell appropriate items that may be used that would not violate any board policies or otherwise. So it's groups that you approve, and then all the vendors are listed under those groups. So if a card is tried, if an attempt is made to use a card to a vendor who is not in the approved category, that card would be denied and that transaction would not be allowed to take place. So the benefits to the district are there would be no annual card fee. The credit limits and card controls are set by the district by the P card administrator. The card is accepted at over 9 million locations. A vendor will be paid within 24 to 48 hours, so they get their payment very quickly. 1099 reporting is eliminated by the district because the onus is on the credit card company who is approving that purchase. A lost and stolen card would have zero liability for the district, and the purchase orders are not required as a vendor because categories and vendors are already pre-approved. The monetary benefits are that we would get a rebate depending on the cumulative net transaction volume for a 12-month period. Typically in our research, that seems to be about 1%. So you think of it, everything we spend on a per year basis, we would get a return of 1%. The larger amount purchases can be made by using the P card, and we can obtain higher discounts for goods and services because we would be purchasing in volume. The ability to receive discounts from net payment terms. So if you have a certain payment within 10 days, you receive a discount. We can do that more quickly by using a P card than by processing a paper check. The research shows that the reported administrative cost savings add up to about $74 per transaction. And it will eliminate the need for having to have petty cash in the buildings. You know, the cash is our most riskiest asset, and we want to eliminate having to have cash in the buildings because it puts, you know, not only the asset in danger, but also the danger to the staff and the children. So we'd like to eliminate having to have cash in the buildings. Laura, next slide, please. So with different vendors, there are different safety controls that are in there. Most of them cover up to about $100,000 of what they call waivable charges. These would be transactions that might be used on a card that would not be deemed beneficial to the district. These would be transactions that are made by terminated employees. Because merchant groups and purchase categories are pre-approved, the cards cannot be used to make inappropriate purchases. But should a card be used by an employee that had been terminated after the purchases were made, we would be able to waive those charges up to about $100,000. And it depends, and it varies from company to company, but that's about the industry average. And we also would have the ability to dispute suspicious charges. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It works the same way as a credit card does, although there are more safety controls than there would be on a regular traditional credit card. So if there are any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Josie, before you entertain questions, the 1% rebate, it's also important to note that we pay our utilities through the P card.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm sorry. I forgot to write that on my notes. Yeah. Regarding the 1% rebate, I have been speaking to colleagues throughout the county, and many of them use P cards to pay for their utilities. So if you think of what our utility bills are per year, getting that 1% rebate on that would be awesome. It'd be additional revenue coming into the district. And we would just have to make sure that those utilities will take P cards. I know in my former districts like DTE, Consumers, Energy, they took the P card, and we put everything we could as far as utility payments on that in order to take advantage of the 1% rebate. So any other questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me, Josie?
Yes, I certainly can.
Okay, thank you. I read this today, and I was impressed with this. I think it's great. We should have full transparency and accountability. This is a great idea. However, will this eliminate the personal credit cards we already have with the district?
Yes, our goal is to terminate those cards and use P cards because they're more convenient, they're easier to use. And we're looking at giving them to like every building principal, so they would be able to make those petty cash transactions or their memberships or their conferences or their fundraiser purchases themselves in their building, and to give them to the directors of different departments and programs.
Okay, my last question. So will you be monitoring these on a monthly basis?
Actually, we probably would, yes, we'll be monitoring this on a monthly basis. So they will have a firm date that they will have to turn in the reconciliation. So part of the program is they'll have to go online and look at all their transactions, apply the appropriate account number, and then once a month after that deadline has passed, the business office would make a download of all the purchases, check to see what was purchased to make sure that there was nothing that happened to have slipped by, but that's a very rare thing that happens because of the pre-approved merchant categories. And we will also, and then we would upload that into the system. So you'll also be having the expenses hit the general ledger quicker, a quicker turnaround for that. So you'll be getting more current, up-to-date financial information rather than the lag time that it would happen because of what has to occur when you process a check. Then when the paper reconciliation comes in, their statement along with their individual receipts, we would then be checking to make sure that there was no sales tax that was charged, because that would be one of the things that they would have to agree to, is to carry a tax exempt form and make sure that no tax would be charged to the district for making a purchase.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That sounds great.
And in our quest to eliminate cash from the buildings, the next program that we are working on will definitely help us in accomplishing that goal. So Ms. Moore, if you switch to the parent pay presentation, Josie will continue sharing that information with our trustees.
Okay, this one I'm very excited to bring to you. We are looking into an online payment platform for our parents and community. Laura, could you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So our goal is to increase efficiencies and convenience. So to our first group, our parents will be able to pay for a number of items or purchases for students in every grade level at multiple buildings at one time with one transaction. So examples would include things that would be purchased or paid for: senior dues, spirit wear, field trips, fundraising items, fees, fines, lunch accounts, deposits, or anything else that can be purchased or bought through the district. Any physical items or any fees can be put online. For our buildings and departments, this would offer a robust reporting mechanism. So we would get a report of current paid students that can be run at any time for any item or any program that's put out on the site. So if you think about it, this will create a lifetime roster to better track payments for forms and permission slips can be attached to each item that the parent can download, fill out, and then upload to return to the building. This would eliminate the need to hand track payments. The historical information about every payment will also be kept in the system. So if you think about it, if you have an elementary school that's attending a field trip, at any time a roster can be run to see which parent has paid for that field trip, so that teacher can have a roster of all the students who will be attending at that moment in time. Next, please. The district, the convenience and the efficiencies would be that the payments are tracked in the system, and it has easy ability so that we can go back and find payments for a specific student or a specific parent or family. The payments will be automatically deposited into the district's bank account overnight, and it eliminates checks having to be returned because sometimes those deposits don't get made currently in a timely fashion to the bank. So it would reduce the amount of returned checks we would have for that reason. The transactions can be posted as often as needed, either daily, weekly, monthly, in an upload into the financial system. So it would make less room for errors It would increase the timeliness of posting those cash receipts, so our revenues would be current. And it increases the capacity in the business office because of the ease of use and the quickness of doing that. I would recommend that we would be doing this on a daily basis so that we could tie it back to the daily deposits that go into our bank account. And this way it would make the bank reconciliations more efficient and more easy. It would eliminate the cash that's being held in the building, which will eliminate the potential for fraud or theft. It minimizes the need to recoup funds for the return checks and eliminates the needs for courier service having to bring those deposits to the bank throughout the district. So that would be a cost savings to the district. Next slide, please. How it will work. Parent profiles, or what they would call customer profiles, would be created in the system during the implementation of the program, and they would come directly from MyStar. The system, the parent payment platform system, will run a job each night and would update any changes made to MyStar. So any incoming new students or new families would automatically be updated in a profile created in the payment platform. Each profile would automatically then receive a system-generated email, and they would have their own login and a temporary password, which they would then reset so that they would have their own secure family profile, and all their students would reside in that profile. The parent can then go ahead and make purchases to any of the items listed on the system. Next slide, please. So, for example, I have a senior at Southfield A&T and a fifth grader at Stevenson, and I need to pay for senior dues, class t-shirt. I need to put $25 into my fifth grader's lunch account, and I need to put $10, pay for a field trip, that $10 for the zoo. So I go into my profile, I go check off the listed items, each of the listed items, load them up into my cart. When I'm done, I click pay, and I enter in the form of payment. That payment can either be that family's personal credit card, or it can be directly taken out of their checking account through an e-check. They would just have to include their routing number and checking account number. The payment's processed and a printable receipt is made available to the families, to the parent, and during the overnight processing, that lunch account will be updated into the MyStar system to reflect that payment. At the bank, the transaction, along with any others, is sent to the district's bank account for deposit overnight. Next slide, please. Here's the estimated costs. For credit card purchases, it's approximately a 2.65% on the total amount of each transaction that would go to the credit card company for credit card purchases. In addition to that, there's a 28 cents transaction per transaction for payment processing fee. So that means no matter what the amount of the transaction is, it's only 28% that is being assessed for the payment processing fee for the payment platforms. 28 cents. Did I say, I'm sorry, 28 cents.
I didn't want to say anyone. 28
No, I'm sorry. No, my mistake. I'm sorry. 28 cents. If the families pay by e-check, it's a 1% total on the amount of the transaction made by e-check and 28 cents, again, per transaction payment processing fee. We believe that we are confident that we can support this cost with the annual rebate that we receive from the P-card program. Next slide, please.
Josie, for clarification, some pass along that cost to their families.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Some districts will pass on that cost by assessing a convenience fee for using the system. But we are of the mentality that we would like to encourage our families to use this as much as possible to make it convenient for them, and to eliminate to eliminate the difficulties and increase the efficiency. So we are believing that we can support absorbing those fees through the rebate we get with the P card program. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Josie, I just have one question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a great deal, but does this apply to band boosters and PTA accounts as well?
I would not put band boosters on there because they're a separate entity, and PTA also, because it would be associated with our tax ID number.
Right.
And it would go into our bank account, and then we would have to turn around and cut them a check. So no,
Right.
I would discourage band boosters, booster clubs, or PTAs using the system. This would only be for items that we would have for parents to purchase, for our parents, for the district.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Leave them separately.
Yeah, they should be having their own separate tax ID, so you don't want to commingle those.
Correct. I just want to make sure we're not doing that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I should have put in here, and I'm sorry, I kind of did this on a short time frame, but one of the things is the possibilities that the future holds for this this system is really great. We're looking down the road of somehow incorporating ticket sales in for athletics, maybe, having them buy a pass for a certain number amount. We also see it eventually using this for community usage. Once we can incorporate it with School Dude, which is the system that we're currently using to reserve our buildings and rooms, but we could also use that as the payment platform for that. We see our tuition-based programs such as Saturday school or summer school being moved on to this. So there's a great deal of what's the word I want to use? Items that we can put on there and use, and then, and make it convenient for our parents.
Great. Sounds good.
Thank you, Ms. Josie.
You're welcome.
Again, trustees, both of those items will come back before you as information items with more specificity relative to which companies we've vetted and selected to implement the purchase card as well as the parent pay. We're currently working with our legal team to ensure that all contractual items have been addressed prior to presenting the information to you for information and approval. Next on the agenda is that of our teacher evaluations. Trustees, you may recall a few years ago, you did approve our teacher evaluation instrument, being that of Charlotte Danielson. Since we are now in a virtual world, we have worked, the team has worked very diligently on aligning the teacher evaluation process to that of the virtual world. And Mrs. English would like to speak with you regarding those updates. So if you would, Ms. Norris, please present that PowerPoint. And Mrs. English, if you would share our advancement relative to the teacher evaluation process.
Thank you. Good evening to Dr. Green, to our board president and trustees, and to our community. Thank you so much for your engagement this evening. I don't want to be before you long as I present to you our evaluation process for 2020-2021 school year. I'll give Ms. Laura a moment. Thank you, Ms. Laura. You can advance. So first, I just want to start with the purpose. The purpose of our evaluation, it's vital to the success of all students. It creates standardization across the district, provides opportunities for reflection on best practices, areas of growth, and support, strengths, and feedback of our instruction within the district. It is meant to be a conversation tool around practitioners' journey and then rigorous, transparent, and fair evaluation system. Next slide. So one of the things that we knew going into this year was that we could not enter this year as we have traditionally. Normally, when we come into the beginning of the year, we start the evaluation process starts in September. But because of the impact of COVID and all of the things that have been happening, we knew that something had to be different this year as we consider that impact, how it has impacted our students, our families, our teachers, our administrators, just our community in general. We knew that we had to do something different. And so immediately, this was going to be a conversation. This was not going to be a decision made alone at the central office level, but we needed to really incorporate and collaborate a process for making sure that the decisions that we made around evaluation were going to benefit our teachers, because this is their reflective process of their practice, making sure that it was transparent and that it was also sensitive to how this pandemic has impacted our instructional process. So there was research that was put into this. Of course, we have reviewed Michigan Compiled Law 380.1249. We have been given much guidance from MDE and specifically recently the MDE Educator Evaluation Guidance Memo COVID-19-134, which came out this past Thursday. We've also reviewed the Danielson framework for remote teaching. As we know, we use the Danielson model for our teacher evaluation, and Danielson has prescribed for us to consider some specific things around that teaching rubric that would really provide a lens around teaching in the virtual environment. There was also work done with Danielson and Michigan State University, which provided us an online learning crosswalk and provided specific strategies that teachers can use within this virtual learning environment. And then also this year, we will be using the distance learning playbook for K-12 from Nancy Frey, John Hattie, and Douglas Fisher, which really gives us an in-depth view of virtual learning and how we can build our capacity across the district within this environment. What we thought was very important in this process was collaboration. Again, we did not want to make any decisions without having the voice of those who are going to be impacted by using this tool. So at the beginning of the year, we established a teacher and principal advisory. This was made up of teachers, representative teachers, K-12, and principals, all of our principals who came together to really voice their concern around teacher evaluation this year, to make sure that the central office had an idea about, their concerns, their expectations, what they thought was fair. Many of them said, hey, it's a new year. We have a lot of challenges. We have a new learning platform. We have new learning resources and programs and things that we have to calibrate. It is unfair that we start the process normally in September, but we need some time to learn how to navigate our site, to get comfortable with this virtual learning environment, and also to help and support our students and families who also need some time to learn all of the newness of our programs and tools. We also met several times with SEA, SASA, MESPA to get feedback around the evaluation process. We also had a cohort, the K5, K8 cohort of principals that met, along with the 9-12 principals that met to talk about this evaluation process and to really help us calibrate our lens as we have to go into classrooms and observe throughout the year. The Intent Student Support Network was a part of this process, of course, our talent management division, and then also we had consultation with Oakland schools as well. Next slide, please. So this year, all teachers will be evaluated. The district understands the importance of observation and feedback within this new teaching and learning environment. As teachers learn how to effectively navigate new technology, learning management systems, curricular platforms, and online resources, opportunities for conversation and feedback will help to build capacity in all educators related to effective instructional practices in all content areas. And we thought that this year more than ever, as we really try to figure out the dynamics, the successes and the challenges of our processes, we thought that that feedback will be valuable for everyone as we all calibrate our lens around virtual instruction. Next slide, please. And so this is just a timeline. I won't go in detail, but this is the timeline for how our evaluations will look throughout the year. Goal setting began November 2nd. It goes through November 23rd, where the teachers are setting their goals for the year. First semester observation is from November 30th through February 5th. This is for probationary and minimally effective teachers, where principals will have an opportunity to go into classrooms and provide some one-on-one support for those teachers as well. There's the mid-year progress that's happening February 8th through March 19th for our probationary and minimally effective teachers. And then April 5th through May 28th is the formal observation for all of our staff in the district. Throughout this process, virtual visits are happening throughout the year. So these are non-evaluative growth and support visits where principals and even some central office staff, curriculum, even myself will just go in a few minutes just to kind of observe what's happening, take note of those things that are happening effectively, how students are engaging, taking notes of some of the challenges that students may be experiencing, or even teachers may be experiencing, so that we can have those conversations throughout the year, and identifying some things that are working well, and then allowing some opportunities for our teachers to share those best practices and those strategies that are working well with other teachers around the district. So we're going to use this year really as a time for us aligning our perspective. We've not been here before, so we cannot go into this particular year with the same traditional mindset of evaluations in the past. We realize that teachers need time. We realize that it may bring a sense of anxiety if we go in too fast. And if we also know that we need time to really talk about, have conversations about this virtual learning, talk about strategies that we can use in our classrooms, small group, one-on-one, whole class instruction, talk about what assessment looks like, talk about what formative assessment looks like. All those things have to happen throughout the year so that by the time we get to the summative assessment at the end of the year, that second semester observation, we have aligned our thinking, we have aligned our understanding around best practices and what we would view as a high quality instruction within our classrooms. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we know, our evaluation is 100%. 60% of that 100 comes from our rubric. We are using the Charlotte Danielson rubric, and we are, a lot of this, most of this, almost all of it is taken from our research that I talked about at the beginning with Charlotte Danielson and all those things that we've been researching. So here are the domains. There are 4 domains. We have planning and preparation, and we have 2 strands there, a 1B and 1E there, talking about demonstrating knowledge of students and planning coherent instruction. We have domain 2, which is the classroom environment, focusing on creating an environment of respect and rapport and managing classroom procedures. Then we have domain 3, which is instruction, and we're focusing here on communicating with students, using questioning and discussion techniques, engaging students in learning, and using assessment and instruction. And then our 4th domain, professional responsibilities, communicating with families and professionalism. And we know from our research that all of these strands are of most benefit within the virtual learning environment. And we want to make sure that we focus on meaningful strands so that we can provide feedback and teachers can really grow in this process over the year. Next slide, please. The remaining 40% is data. And as we know, at the end of last year, we did not have our statewide testing, so we don't have those scores available. We are unsure of what the spring will look like. As we know, we're in transition within our presidency. We're in transition, so we know that a lot of things are going to transition as a result of that. And legislation may happen in the spring. However, MDE has made it clear that evaluation should continue and has given us some guidance that we have included and used that to create our process. So for our K-8 teachers, 10%, it says all students will demonstrate growth from fall to spring in ELA and mathematics using the iReady assessment tool. And this also is connected with our Return to Learn plan, as they have asked us to use that benchmark and make sure that we have those things in place for our Return to Learn. So this is aligned right with that. That's 10%. And then we have, and as you can, I wanted to just highlight, you notice we don't say a percentage. We don't say 10% will grow. We don't say 50% will grow, because we realize that the impact of COVID has impacted our students severely, continues to impact our students. And we thought it unfair to put a specific percent. We want our students to show growth as they are in school this year. And so we want to make sure that we are sensitive to that as we are looking at our data across the district. 30% of that is going to be, it says all students will demonstrate growth in all subjects using local assessment to include teacher-created summative assessment, illuminate pre and post assessment, culminating projects, experiments, research, performance, or any other classroom data designed to demonstrate mastery of student learning objectives. So what we are doing is we are attaching those student learning we're looking at those student learning objectives to determine growth of students. So this kind of gives our teachers more of an opportunity to provide evidence of how that's working in their classrooms. What we are doing is the teacher advisory team, which we have been meeting since September, is also now working on developing the student learning objectives for K-8 and then for 9-12. So we'll have 3 student learning objectives for K-8, 3 for 9-12, and those student learning objectives will be cross content. So they will be learning objectives that you can use if you're a PE teacher, if you're a chemistry teacher, if you're an elementary teacher, whatever type of teacher you are. So when it says all subjects, that means within your subject expertise across the district, you will be able to use these SLOs to demonstrate that your students have grown throughout the year, and that your practice has grown and you're growing as a teacher within the district. So we are working on that. Those, again, advisories are representative K-12 of our teachers. So our teachers are working to come up with those SLOs to make sure they're equitable across the district, and make sure that our teachers have the most opportunity to provide that evidence. And as you can see, the assessment is an array. So it can be teacher created assessment that they're doing in their classrooms every day. If they're using Illuminate, if they're having, experiments in science, if it's performance, for vocal or band or whatever is happening, we're giving you, that wherewithal to make sure that you can use all of those things to show that you are growing in your practice. So that's for K-8 teachers. Next slide, please. And then 9-12 is similar, of course, that 10%. All students will demonstrate growth in all subject areas from fall to spring using local pre-test, post-test, or pre-post-test assessments from Illuminate or from your classroom. So again, iReady is not at the high school level, so we are looking for that 10% to come from the assessments that you are using that have been vetted in Illuminate, or if you have some common assessment or some unit assessments that you're using within your classrooms, you can use that as well. And then, of course, the 30% is the same for 9-12. It's using student learning objectives that students will be using to demonstrate their mastery of learning. And then teachers will use those assessments to provide evidence at the end of the year to show that their students have grown from fall to spring. So that is the breakdown of our tool, 60% from the rubric, and then 40% is going to be our data portion. Of course, as the transition happens at the state level, if legislation changes, of course, we will have to adjust this. However, at this time, the things that we have created in our tool are in direct alignment of what the state has provided as guidance for us at this point in the year. Next slide, please. And so this year, we're making sure that we are using rubrics that match the position. And so we have the Southfield teacher rubric for all of our teachers. We have our literacy coach rubric there. It's called instructional specialist inside of the Standards for Success platform that we use. For our Title I teachers and paraprofessionals, that they're going to be using the learning support teacher rubric. We have rubrics for special education teachers, for our counselors, psychologists, and speech pathologists. So all of these rubrics are Danielson rubrics. And so now each position will be evaluated based on their position and how they provide support and how they show growth within their position in the district. Next slide, please. So again, we're using our Standards for Success platform. That is the platform where all of those rubrics are stored. That is where principals are recording their observations, their virtual visits. They'll all be within the Standards for Success platform. So we have our virtual visits. Now those non-evaluative growth and support visits are no more than 10 minutes. It's just a time for us to get in there, observe silently. We're not, we don't expect teachers to stop. They are to continue teaching. We're just coming in, observing silently, and then we'll come out. And that's just an opportunity for us to look at instruction, provide some feedback to teachers, and help them as they go through their process throughout the year. The mid-year documentation is there. Formal observation documentation is there. The goals that teachers are creating for the year are there. We also have a form for anyone that may be on an individual development plan. And then there is room there on that platform for teachers to upload their evidence throughout the year. So as teachers are looking at these student learning objectives, and they're looking at their assessment results throughout the year, or their project results, or their performance results, or whatever it is that they have established for mastery related to that student learning objective, they can upload videos, they can upload documentation. Any of those things can be uploaded into the platform so that principals can look at that as evidence at the end of the year for their evaluation. Next slide, please. And then, of course, our effectiveness ratings are the same, and you can see the rate, the rating scale there. Ineffective 1.0 to 1.49, minimally effective 1.5 to 2.49, effective 2.5 to 3.49, highly effective 3.5 to 4.0. I do want to pause and say I want teachers to know that evaluation is not meant to be punitive. And if you would just go to the next slide, Ms. Laura, thank you. We had a conversation this past Friday as we shared our final process with MDE. And in our conversation, we spoke with Rebecca Brewer, who was the manager of Office of Educative Excellence. And after we shared what we were doing, she said that Southfield could be an exemplar for other districts in the state as it relates to the evaluation process that we've created. It is not meant to be punitive. Evaluation should be for growth. And so that is one of the paradigm shifts that I hope to move forward and promote in the district. Our rating systems say minimally effective. It says effective. It says highly effective. The word effective is in every rating for a reason. It's because it says that you are effective. You're just at this point and you're not here yet, but you're still effective at some level. Evaluation is not to say that you are a bad teacher at all. It is to say, here are the areas where you are strong. Here are the areas where we need to build capacity, and let's find some strategies. Let's do some professional learning. Let's connect with our colleagues. Let's make sure that we have everything we need to build our instruction across the district. And so that is our focus here, is to, number one, make sure that we are being sensitive that COVID-19 has impacted us. And because of that, we want to make sure that we allow teachers time to get comfortable within this environment, that we as principals and administrators begin to align our thinking around, what is good virtual instruction, how do we provide that feedback, what is that language, that we provide opportunities for teachers to express their voice in this process. And so that is our focus this year for our evaluation process. Ms. Laura, I think is there one more slide? And so our focus, it says grace and flexibility is key in this unprecedented time within our professional and personal experience. Paradigm shift. Teacher evaluation is a continuous conversation of growth and support to enhance our practice and create the ultimate environment for sustained student achievement. It's a conversation that we have. It's the back and forth that we have to talk about what we see that is good and what we see that can make us better. And it's really this year about really extending grace and flexibility. We realize that teachers, that all of us, staff, central office, everyone, we are at some times, we feel overwhelmed. At some times, we feel frustrated. And we have experienced our own personal trauma as it relates to COVID, whether it is a personal experience of sickness, whether we have lost loved ones, there are just a variety of things that have impacted us, and we realize that. And so we want to make sure that even in our evaluation process, that we are extending grace and flexibility, that we're being sensitive, at the same time having a standard set to make sure that our students are receiving the best education possible, even in this unprecedented time. And so that is our evaluation process for this year. Thank you so much for your time. Are there any questions at this time?
Thank you, Mrs. English. You've done an amazing job presenting. And I noted, and I'm sure others noted, your pace this evening was significantly slower. So I'm extremely proud of you and wanted to highlight that during your presentation this evening. Board President, did you see anyone with questions? I did not, so I wanted to make sure we acknowledged anyone with questions. If not, thank you, Mrs. English. Continuing with our curriculum, next we will have Ms. Nancy to present the updates relative to our K-5 report card revisions.
Good evening, Board, Dr. Green, and community. Just a brief overview of the report card revisions. Is it going to come up?
That coming up shortly. If not, I know you always have a backup.
I can't believe I have that. I remember having it. It's okay. I can speak to it without it. It's no problem. And then we can forward it onto the board. I think the board got it though. So the history was.
I'm sorry, Nancy. The trustees do have it. It was sent to them earlier on yesterday.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Green. So the history of this was last year we attempted to do a complete overhaul of the K-5 report card. We had an entire day planned out, set up for all the K-5 teachers to participate in, and then we had a snow day. So we rescheduled that date, and then we had COVID. So we are, I worked with Oakland Schools, Stephen Sneed, to figure out a way to continue making progress despite the situation we're in, and given the time constraints of our teachers and how hard they're working, and not asking more of people who don't have more to give right now. So we put together a survey and surveyed the staff to find out what level of involvement they wanted in the revision of just the science and social studies components, because those components are very outdated. The standards have changed at the state level and the national level. So we are behind the times in that, and it's difficult for teachers to mark. So we want to at least get those two revised. So we gave people the option, teachers the options of being writers of the new report cards, readers and revisers of what was written, and or just inheritors of the information. And so they were able to select their level of involvement. And at the last PD we had on November 3rd, we began that process. And in the slides, you'll see some samples of what they've come up with. And so we're going to take it from there and continue that process out so that all K-5 standards in science and social studies are aligned to the state standards. The plan is to then have, before I meet with you next, to update you, to have a parent focus committee, a student focus committee, because those are the recipients of the information, and we want to make sure they're readable to the appropriate audience and yet still purposeful for the teachers to get to convey the necessary learning. And then we would bring it to the cabinet, and then and also reviewed by the teachers themselves, the review teams. Then it would come to you for final approval, and that will hopefully be accomplished prior to January, the end of January, second card marking ending. So we just wanted to highlight the process we were in. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you
for your time.
Moving right along, we are going to bring to the team this evening that of Mr. Matthew Hyde. A few times he joined us, he wasn't able to move up on the screen. He is with us as a panelist. He will share some updates relative to our preparedness response plan particularly around the emergency orders or executive orders now changing to health orders. So, Mr. Hyde?
Yes. Ms. Norris, could you pull up the PowerPoint? Perfect. Thank you so much. Oh.
Actually, there's the report card revision. We already the preparedness response. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So this board policy was adopted on May 12th of 2020. So it's our COVID preparedness and response plan, mitigation, self-reporting, and leave of absence plan. You can go to the next slide. So the purpose of this policy review is informational purposes only. So we are not changing anything in this board meeting, but it is the purpose to inform the board of the district's legal obligation to adjust its COVID response plan to applicable Michigan law and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services orders. As you all know, last month on October 2nd, the Michigan Supreme Court's ruling voided all of Governor Whitmore's orders issued after April 30th. On October 5th, not October 6th, so that's a mistake on my part. There was an executive order issued on October 5th, and there was another executive order issued on October 6th. The October 6th order does not involve the district, but the October 5th order does involve the district, and that order was issued on gathering limits and face masks. Now that order has since been rescinded, as well as the order on October 9th. So that order as well involved limits and face mask. And then there was another order issued on October 29th. That order rescinded the October 9th order, and that order added contact tracing obligations. You can go to the next slide. So these are some key changes we made to the board policy. So previously, the board policy referenced Governor Whitmore's executive orders, and we've replaced those references with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services orders. So we've omitted any references to the governor's executive orders. The governor also issued an executive order that stated employers cannot discharge, discipline, or retaliate against for staying at home. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has not issued an order on this, so we have just omitted that language completely. It also changed the symptom requirement. So previously, our board policy said if you show one symptom, you aren't able to enter buildings. That has since been changed to 2. So we've adjusted that and included principal symptoms. So the principal symptoms are shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell, and difficulty breathing if they are unrelated to a pre-existing conditions such as allergies or asthma. And then we have also revised the definition of close contact. So previously we had 6 feet for a prolonged extended time. We have since changed that to 6 feet for at least 15 minutes with a household member who has tested positive for COVID within the last 14 days. And those are the only changes we've had. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll bring Batman and Robin. Oh, wait, I think we might work.
That's so much a question, but just clarification. It sounds like that'll be brought to us at a later date for approval.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have our very own Batman and Robin, also affectionately known as Mr. Beebe and Mr. Marshall. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone, to the board, to Superintendent Dr. Green, to staff, as well as parents and students that are with us on tonight. And so we're here to talk about the holiday giving that we're working on. Mr. Marshall, did you want to go first, or?
Yes, I'll go first. Good evening, everybody. First, I just wanted to start with, explain to you guys that, of course, things are a lot different than last year this time, pre-COVID, as far as the companies and the donations, because a lot of these companies are all virtual, right? The companies that donated to us, they're not even back in person. So we've been, looking for different resources and finding different ways, of course, to help our students. One way is, just to give an example, we have a bunch of gift cards where Mr. Beebe and myself, we're going to go out to these stores, go shopping to adopt our own families that are in need. We're going to, I try our best to identify the families that are most in need to make sure they have a good Christmas, to have the necessities as far as the winter coats, hats, gloves, scarves to stay warm out here in the cold weather. That's just one way. As far as our food throughout the holidays, right? Because of course we'll be on break as far as school. Side partners who will be delivering throughout the entire holidays, including Thanksgiving, of course, nutritious meals to feed our families.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mr. Marshall. So what we've done is we partnered with the Goodfellows. We sent out information on last week to our building leaders as well as to the PTA. So for those families that are in need, they will be able to fill out an application through Goodfellows to help them with the December holidays. We're also connected with the Church of Transfiguration, St. David Episcopal Church, Covenant Presbyterian Church, and CARES in Farmington Hills for those families that are in need of food help throughout the holidays. So once again, as we always say, just reach out to us. We're here, email us, call us, and we will try to meet the needs as best we can. So thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. B, did I fail to hear you mention the Ascension Flu Clinic this Saturday?
Yeah, no, I did not mention it, but yeah, so we are preparing for our Ascension Flu clinic that will take place at Southfield High School A&T from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. on this Saturday. Once again, we'll be practicing social distancing. It will be a safe environment where folks will walk in and they'll walk directly out, and so we're creating the best safe environment we can.
And if you all may fill out the information if you're interested prior to coming, there's a link that is attached. You can find on our website as well as our social media sites. So of course we don't want any exchange of paper and pen if we can avoid it. If you can't, then we will have that available to sign up when you actually get to the site.
Excellent. Thank you both. Board President, I'm not sure if anyone had any questions relative to our supports.
Any questions, trustees? Hearing none, bill disbursement report.
Bill disbursement report, please rejoin us, Mr. Ingram.
Good evening again, community, board, Dr. Green, EDN. Payroll in the month of October, covering 2 payrolls, approximately 2.8 million. Next, we have accounts payable, approximately 1.1 million. Finally, we have payments by wire or ACH of 1.4 million. In total, in the month of October, we dispersed $5.3 million. Any questions? Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Public participation. If you wish to address the board regarding a school-related issue that has not yet been resolved by school administration, please raise your hand now. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. As a matter of fairness, speakers with complaints against individuals are asked not to mention persons by name. Complaints concerning employees pursuant to Board Policy 9130 should be brought to the attention of school principals or other administrators before coming to the Board of Education. Your cooperation is appreciated. Ms. Crystal Sanford.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To the school board, to the superintendent, and to the families and community that's online. I just had a few clarity questions. I wanted to know a couple of things. I know Josie, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name. So I apologize just by calling you by your first name. When you stated that you would be, there would be vendors that would be pre-approved, are these vendors are going to go through an RFP process for the P card program? Well, I'm sorry, not the P card, but the staff usage of cards.
Board President, the answer to that is yes. They will go through a screening process, not necessarily an RFP process, but there will be a screening process that will be approved by our auditors prior to us implementing that screening process.
Okay. And there was another question I had when Mrs. English spoke about the professional development. I didn't hear anything about ethics or implicit bias. Is that something that's going to be included for the strength-based assessment of the teachers?
So Ms. Sanford Brown, if you can go ahead and just go through all your questions.
Yeah, I am. Oh, you want me to go through all of them? Okay, one time. Okay. I think those were the only questions. I just had some comments regarding the P card. That's a program that we utilize here in Bloomfield Hills, and when my son was in school, and it worked really well, so I enjoyed that. And I just want to give some congratulations and some kudos to the early childhood educators. And early childhood is pre-birth through age 8. So that does include kindergarten, first and second grade. And it can be very difficult to teach on a virtual format, but I witnessed both educators at Busey and MacArthur with my 2 granddaughters, and I've witnessed 5 educators. And I just want to commend them with their creativity in getting the children engaged in active learning through a virtual format. So that, gives kudos to that format. And I'm thankful for the additional funding that was allocated for emotional and mental health for students, staff, and the educators. And just to be aware, I heard it by Mrs. English stated about the trauma that the children are going through during this drastic, these drastic changes in their life, to be, cognizant of that, what children are going through.
Thank you, Ms. Sanford Brown. Dr. Green?
So, Board President, if I may, I would like to provide a written response back to Ms. Sanford Brown, and also outline the process relative to our comprehensive needs assessment, how we identify what professional developments we offer, et cetera, so that she has a comprehensive view of all that will be incorporated into this evaluation process.
Thank you, and much appreciated. Ms. Marcia Binion.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcia Binion, and I'm a parent of Marissa Binion, who attends Community Learning Center, and I'm also an officer for the Southfield Public Schools Parents Advisory Committee. I do have 4 questions for the board regarding the return of the students. Since our students will be some of the first one returning when conditions are better, I do have some concerns that I hope you have some answers for. The first question is, has the district reconsidered mandatory COVID testing for students and staff returning to school? I understand it's not mandatory at this time, but I'm just wondering if you have changed your mind. Secondly, will the district be sharing the results of the air quality testing done for the school buildings over the summer? I did notice in the report that there were a lot of HVACs that were installed, which is a great thing. So I'm sure that improves some of the air quality of the building, since we know that COVID is passed through the air. I just want to know if you'd be sharing the results of those tests with the parents. Number 3, will principals be sharing with parents what specific safety precautions have been implemented in their school building prior to students returning? That's signage, PPE, any hand sanitizer stations, anything. Will the principals be having specific conversations with the parents to update them with the precautions that have been in place? And lastly, will bus attendants and bus drivers be doing temperature checks prior to students boarding the bus? And in the event a student exhibits symptoms, has the district determined how that student would be transported home? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binion. Dr. Green?
Yes, Board President, thank you. Actually, Ms. Binion, I'm happy to say that I have answers for all 4 of your questions this evening. The mandatory testing, we have not decided to recommend mandatory testing because the testing is only as good as the moment that the person takes the test. So if a person takes the test on Monday and their results don't come back until Thursday, if they were exposed to COVID, when they leave the facility on Monday until they report on any date after that, they could have had exposure and the test will not give us an accurate result. So in our conversations with the health department, they are not indicating that that is the best way in which we can mitigate exposure to the coronavirus. So at this time, we are not moving in that direction. However, if additional evidence is presented, we will consider that at a later date. Sharing information with families relative to what practices are in place. Oh, no, your second question was about the air quality. We've shared that information on several occasions. I actually forwarded you an email with that information as well, but if there are some additional parents that did not get that air quality information, we can share that yet again with the community. All of our buildings did fall within the standards as required by law, but we're more than happy to provide that additional information back out. Regarding specific conversations about what PPE and what mitigation may be in place in each building, the Oakland County Health Department, along with central office and the principals, walk their buildings, and our report in December will have a comprehensive view of what we're putting in place, including the development of our wellness rooms that are being built in each school, along with the nursing support and our new 4-in-1 stations that have been installed that take everyone's temperature. The building. It also has a dispenser for hand sanitizer. It has a dispenser for mask in the event that someone comes into the building and does not have a mask, and also has a dispenser for gloves. So each of our buildings do have those, and some of our larger facilities will have more than one at the various entry and exit locations. Regarding transportation, the Department of Transportation at the state level has indicated that bus drivers are not to take temperatures because their primary goal is to ensure that children get on and off the buses safely and that they transport students in a safe manner. So they will not be taking the temperature of our students. However, if a student does display symptoms, there will be a secondary mode of transportation circling the district to pick up those students to bring them back to a central location until we're able to contact the parents. We will not turn a child around and send them back to their home, not knowing that a parent is at that home or whether or not a parent is at that home. So we continue to work with the Department of Transportation, not at the local level, but at the county and state level regarding those pieces as well. But to your point, we are putting those processes and procedures in place as well. Excellent questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Green. I don't see any additional hands at this time. Trustees, anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, I have something here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to say, first of all, congratulations to all new board members and those who campaign as well. I want to thank you for your support and confidence in me during my campaign. During my 11-year stance on the board, this is my first time campaigning. I never had to campaign before, but it was very interesting. I met a lot of people and had quite a few conversations about the school district. Thanks to those who sent me donations. Donations I did not have to solicit. I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm not leaving the district. I will still be involved as I have a granddaughter in the district, and I will be visible and active as always. Thank you for your support again. I'm done.
Thank you. Trustee Charles.
Yes, because of the lateness of the hour, I'll just say briefly that I wanted to thank all service women and servicemen who help defend our nation and help defend the things that we're so accustomed to, and that they're heroes, no matter what anyone says. And I'm just grateful for just the rights that we have in this nation, and we wouldn't have them without our service women and men. And so tomorrow is November 11th, Veterans Day. If you have an opportunity to recognize someone who has served, that would be great.
Any other items for the good of the order? Hearing none. Future meetings, Tuesday, December 8th, 2020, 7 p.m. regular board meeting. Meeting adjourned at 9:30 p.m. Stay safe.
Don't forget the evaluation, Mr. Hicks, on November 17th.
I'm sorry?
Don't forget the evaluation on November 17th.
I believe it was a different date.
I thought it was November 17th. Did you change it?
No.
And that's December 8th now?
So what we had discussed was having part one of the evaluation on the 8th and then one again on the 15th for the actual vote on the evaluation.
12/8 and 12/15?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Board President.
Yep.
Did we decide not to have the pre-meeting on the 27th of this month? I know some said that they may not need it, so I'm okay either way. I just want to know if that was off the table for us.
Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
I don't need it.
Okay. Hearing none, we can proceed with the 15th. So that means that Dr. Green doesn't need to present anything.
8th and the 15th.
8th and the 15th. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.